Get ready for the Texas Real Estate Commission licensing exam with these important questions and answers on the topic of contracts. Let's begin. What is the difference between a unilateral and bilateral contract? A unilateral contract is formed when one party promises to perform an act if the other party performs a specific act, while a bilateral contract is formed when both parties make promises to each other. What is the difference between an express and implied contract? An express contract is formed when the parties have explicitly stated their intentions and agreements, while an implied contract is formed by the actions and conduct of the parties. What is the statute of frauds? The statute of frauds is a law that requires certain contracts to be in writing and signed in order to be enforceable in court. What is an option contract? An option contract is a contract where one party has the right, but not the obligation, to purchase or sell a property at a predetermined price within a certain time frame. What is a contingency clause in a contract? A contingency clause is a provision in a contract that makes the performance of the contract contingent upon the occurrence or non-occurrence of a certain event. What is the difference between an assignment and novation? An assignment is the transfer of one party's rights and obligations under a contract to another party, while novation is the substitution of one party with another party in a contract. What is the parole evidence rule? The parole evidence rule is a principle of contract law that prohibits the introduction of evidence of oral or written statements that contradict or vary the terms of a written contract. What is the difference between a counteroffer and a rejection? A counteroffer is a new offer made by the offeree in response to the original offer, while a rejection is a statement by the offeree that they do not accept the original offer. What is a liquidated damages clause? A liquidated damages clause is a provision in a contract that specifies the amount of damages that will be paid by a party in the event of a breach. What is a time is of the essence clause? A time is of the essence clause is a provision in a contract that requires strict compliance with the specified deadlines and dates. What is the difference between a unilateral and mutual mistake? A unilateral mistake is an error made by one party to a contract, while a mutual mistake is an error made by both parties to a contract. What is the difference between a warranty and representation in a contract? A warranty is a promise made by one party regarding the quality or condition of the subject matter of the contract, while a representation is a statement of fact made by one party that induces the other party to enter into the contract. What is the difference between a void and voidable contract? A void contract is a contract that has no legal effect from the beginning, while a voidable contract is a contract that can be avoided or rescinded by one or both parties. What is the difference between a unilateral and mutual mistake? A unilateral mistake is an error made by one party to a contract, while a mutual mistake is an error made by both parties to a contract. What is the difference between a merger clause and an integration clause? A merger clause is a provision in a contract that indicates that the contract represents the entire agreement between the parties, while an integration clause is a provision in a contract that prohibits the introduction of extrinsic evidence to vary the terms of the contract. What is the difference between a unilateral and bilateral contract? A unilateral contract is an agreement where one party makes a promise in exchange for a specific action or performance by the other party, whereas a bilateral contract is a two-way agreement where both parties make promises to perform certain actions or obligations. What is the statute of frauds, and how does it relate to real estate contracts? The statute of frauds is a legal requirement that certain contracts, including real estate contracts, must be in writing to be enforceable. This requirement helps prevent fraudulent claims and misunderstandings about the terms of the contract. What is the difference between an executory contract and an executed contract? An executory contract is a contract that has not yet been fully performed, meaning that one or more parties still have obligations to fulfill. An executed contract, on the other hand, is a contract that has been fully performed, and all parties have fulfilled their obligations. What is earnest money, and how is it used in a real estate contract? Earnest money is a deposit made by a buyer to show their good faith and commitment to purchasing a property. If the buyer breaches the contract, the seller may be entitled to keep the earnest money as a form of compensation for their damages. What is an option contract, and how is it different from a purchase contract? An option contract is an agreement between a buyer and a seller that gives the buyer the right, but not the obligation, to purchase a property at a set price within a certain time frame. A purchase contract, on the other hand, is a binding agreement between a buyer and a seller to purchase a property at a specific price and on specific terms.